Hello and welcome to Game Brain, a podcast about our board game group. I'm Ben Mandelker, and joining me today are Trey Alsop and Jordan Saya. Hey guys, how is it going?
Hey Ben.
Hey Ben.
Yeah.
Hey Trey.
Hi,
How's it going, guys?
Hi.
Doing great. Beautiful day in Los Angeles.
Beautiful day to be inside our home recording.
I've been outside hiking. Ben, you've been recording podcasts for hours and eating McDonald's.
I've been hiking through the mind. I've been hiking through the mind as I talk about various exciting things.
Hiking through the annals of Bravo history.
Yes, actually, this was significant because earlier on Watch What Crappens, my podcast partner Ronnie and I, we talked about the first episode of The Traitors, which dropped last night. I know you two are not huge fans of that show, but it is always worth bringing up on Game Brain because it is the closest that social deduction comes to pop culture. And what I'm happy to report on, did you guys, I take it you guys did not watch the premiere? Or did you?
No, sadly.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
I was too busy playing Blood on the Clock Tower. So
were you really?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, what I am happy to
that would be
report,
awesome. Very cool.
There are two developments on the Traitors that I think you guys might be happy to hear about. One is that the challenges, first and foremost, seem, while they are linked to still the money, which no one cares about, no one in the audience cares about, the challenges seem to also be a little bit more linked to who is safe from murdering versus who is not safe, which is good because they just need to have higher stakes. So that's as a reality show concept, that's good. But also one thing that I have definitely detected in the first 3 episodes that dropped last night is more of an adherence to, not adherence, but an appreciation for strategy. Like there have been more conversations about that is not good traitor behavior. A traitor would not behave this way, that's reminiscent of the conversations that we've had when we've played Avalon or Blood on the Clock Tower. And so it's nice to see now 4 seasons in, people who are coming on the show. It seems like they're putting some effort into actually learning how to navigate these kind of spaces. So I really appreciated that. I thought that was pretty cool.
Is the cast still mostly reality TV, like Bravo people, or is it a good number of Survivor players now, or who's on it?
It's the same kind of ratios where it's about 5 Real Housewives, 5 Big Brother Survivors. There's 2 Love Island. There's Michael Rappaport. There's K-pop star on there. It's actually a great cast. Yeah, the cast chemistry is really strong. But so Rob Sesternino of Survivor, he runs the Rob Has a podcast, which is all about Survivor. It's been going on for years and years. And he is like obviously he's a big Survivor personality, but he also is like a student of these kind of games. Mm-hmm. And he comes onto the show and he really is bringing that mindset. And actually at one point, at one of the roundtables, Michael Rappaport just keeps on babbling and babbling and babbling. He's making so much. Oh, by the way, Donna Kelsey also on it. Mother of Travis and Jason Kelsey.
Okay.
Future mother-in-law of Taylor Swift. So at one point, like Michael Rappaport is just making all this noise, and someone says, "Michael, you have to stop talking because you're either a bad traitor or you're a bad faithful. You're like either a traitor who's obviously deflecting away to protect another traitor, or you're a bad faithful because you're getting in the way of us getting information." And I just thought even making that observation was like a league above anything we definitely saw last season or really end of seasons in terms of like approaching how to figure out who is who on this show. So I thought that was actually pretty cool with the social deduction.
That is cool.
You don't, a lot of times, like some of these people are repeat players.
Only Dorinda who was eliminated first.
So you have to learn the game by watching the previous shows. And so, a lot of times it felt like people were not playing very strategically at all early from what I watched. And so you're now having a base of knowledge being built upon. So a lot of the kind of early, there was a lot of suspicion based upon like people not doing a good job on the challenges. And it's like, that's not an indication of anything the way they were set up originally, because the traders want money just as much as anyone else.
It's a mix of improved experience and also improved game design that are resulting in like a better show. Because I felt the initial problem was the game design more than the play.
Right. I agree. I always thought that was the weakest part.
But it's cool that Rob Cesternino's on there. That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big Survivor guy, so I
we love Rob. We love Rob. So anyway, that's just the Traitors update. No need to go on at length about it or more at length, because today we're actually not talking about Traitors whatsoever.
What are we talking about
mechanics here? Today we're talking about Ayar. It's a brand new game from Fabio Lopiano. I have this thing. I always call him Lopiani. I don't know where that came from. And also Mandela Fernandez Grandon. So we are going to talk about that game. We're going to go deep dive.
And the full title is Ayar Children of the Sun, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Children of the Sun. Right. I assume we're the children? Or the Ayars are the children.
The
Ayar are the children. You're right. Yes. Right. It's almost like a creation myth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Basically, the way the myth is, and we'll get into this later, but the sun created 8 Ayar, and then those Ayar created corn, boats, weaving, and pottery. I think that's the original creation myth.
Right. The sun and the moon
Traitors
together created the 4 Ayar.
Right. The sun and the moon. Well, they're the children of the sun. The moon later came to regard them or something.
Oh, okay.
I'm just making that up. I have no idea.
I'm just reading the description of the game on Board Game Geek.
Oh, well, then you're definitely right. I don't know. I assumed you were also making it up. So, okay. That's my bad.
I know how you could come to that conclusion knowing me. Because that's something I would do.
Trey is known for
okay. Well, I'm looking forward to talking about it, but we have some recent plays.
I impersonate Joseph Campbell often.
Yes, we have some recent. Before we get into that, we have some recent plays. But also before we get into the recent plays, just a heads up that this is on video, for better or for worse. We have a YouTube channel now. Well, we've had a YouTube channel, but now all of our podcasts are going to also have a video component. And so go check out our channel, Game Brain. It's just look on YouTube and look up Game Brain until you see us and our smiling faces. Hi, everyone. This is Ben from the future, here to sadly report that our video got all messed up. It was super janky, and we do not want to present you with a jankified video experience. So sadly, we'll just have to do with our voices, which is too bad because all three of us were serving amazing face this week. But alas. So you can watch us, not just listen to us. And also at Game Brain Pod on Instagram to follow our social media. I'm at Ben Mandelker on social media. If you guys want to share your socials for the crew, for the audience to share, to listen and follow you, then go ahead, go have it. Jordan, do you want to share or no? Or you don't have anything?
I will shortly have another YouTube channel that I believe will be called Play It Again, but it's not done yet. So, the name is not final.
Okay.
We'll see.
Play It Again.
And I feel like this board game podcast is just the table scraps of your other board game podcast.
I do have a Table Scraps. I have on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel called Table Scraps. Definitely go check that out. I just did my best of the year with a giant asterisk, which is that I have so many more games to play. So it's essentially like a rough draft.
Everybody has to do that, right? Like it's so impossible to play everything.
Right. Last year I didn't have to do that. Last year I really had a lot that
Your video had something I'd never seen before in best of the year videos, and I'll leave it at that. But it was exciting.
It was a really interesting. It was a twist.
It was a new concept to best of the year videos. It was great.
But I also felt like I had to be very honest about it. I was like, I realized.
Absolutely.
And were you so delighted with what my number 6 game wound up being, Jordan?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited. Should we even talk about it right now, or is that?
Well, we talk about it. Yeah, let's get right into it. Let's start with that one. Jordan, tell us about Silos.
Yes, Silos is a game from Reiner Knizia. It is a reimplementation of Municipium, I believe, which had an old, boring Roman theme. And the theme is now aliens abducting different types of people and cows for points. It's a strange area control game. You have 7 pieces on a board, and you can move them around, but not very far. You can move either 1 piece, 2 spaces, or 2 pieces, 1 space each. And then you're going to resolve a card, which can either be a random card off a deck or one of your 3 once per game personal cards. And basically, that's your entire turn. You're going to go around doing this. And all of the locations on the board, there are 7 of them, they can be scored in 3 different ways. You can get A UFO can come by and abduct someone, and if you have the majority there, you'll get that person. There are abilities that can trigger in those places, and if you have the majority there, you'll get to trigger the ability. And there's also focus groups, which are groups of people that you can abduct from. And you're trying to get a mix of people, one of every color. There are 4 colors in the game, for a point, and first to 5 points wins. And the fun little spice on top is that there are also cows that you can get from UFO abductions, and cows are wild. They count as any type of person. So it's a basic little set collection game, but it's really fun. You know, you move your people around trying to create majorities. You can upgrade your people to be worth 2 people if they get a college degree. There's a lot of little tongue-in-cheek stuff like that. Ben, what did you think of it?
I really liked it a lot. I liked it actually way more than I was expecting. I thought I was going to have a perfectly fine time. You know, Reiner Knizia is always, at the very worst, he's reliable, you know, or like his worst games I find are like, they're like, okay, this was fine. This is whatever, but they're usually done pretty quickly. Like we had played actually earlier in the week, we played Ego, which I didn't love so much. And these are both games that Bitewing Games has sort of like revamped from the catalog. So Silos, I was expecting to be like fun. I thought like this will probably be fun. The artwork by Quan Chi Moria is wonderful. But what I was not expecting was that it was going to be as fun as it was. I actually had a really, really enjoyable time with it. I thought that the area control, you know, area control is not always my favorite. I feel like I kind of have to be handled with kid gloves by the game with area control, in that with the wrong kind of like theming and presentation, it might set me up to be in my feels, which I know sounds kind of strange. But what I mean by that is that this game, the entire tone from the theming, the setting, the artwork was very funny. And so like when you have these moments where you think you're going to score an area majority in this one place and then something snaky happens and you don't, you just kind of are like, oh, well, you know, because I kind of feel like the game gets you into a place of play. And I think some games are more solemn and they don't put you in that place of play. So then when something snaky happens, It's suddenly like a referendum on your intelligence and everything you've done in your entire life. And you're like, what? And you get mad. And I felt like this game was actually a very silly but very smart game. I thought there was like a lot of intelligence in the design that as we started to play it. And what I really loved was how I thought it was actually very exciting. Like I thought it looked like you were running away with it. I mean, and you won, but like out of nowhere, I was able to catch right up with you. It's best of 5. And all of a sudden I had 4 points.
Like
and
like and it's a race to 5 in like a turn or two. So it was pretty cool.
So it was really, I was like, remember I was sitting there at the table and you were like, what'd you think? And I was like, I really like this. And I go, I actually think I love this. I really,
yeah,
really
that's right.
did.
Yeah, that was a great moment. Yeah.
You know?
One thing that I think is sort of, I mean, the theming is incredible, as you said, and it's really fun. The little cow meeples you collect are great. There's a giant UFO that moves around the board, and that's really fun too. But one of the things I like about it from a mechanical perspective that I feel like you don't get in other like simple area control games like El Grande is that in addition to moving your people around for purposes of where they're going to be when you move them, there's also something to be said about positioning. Because when you move, you know, on your turn, you get 1 or 2 moves. So if you're 3 moves away from a location, you're just not getting there. And even if you're 2 moves away, you can add 1 person there. So you're not only putting people where you want them now, you also have to think, okay, can I put myself in a position where I have my people where I want them now, and I can move them to where they need to go next? And that's
the next
added layer of a puzzle that I feel like a lot of cube pushers don't really have. And I thought it was really fun. And I think it accomplishes that by only having 7 pieces. So you can't like dump a load of cubes on the board. You got 7, and you got to kind of ration them around the board to be useful to you. So I don't know. I think that's a cool mechanical twist on the formula.
I think that area control works best when like the vibe around the table is fun. And there's always a sense of like, or there's like jockeying, don't come here, don't go there. And this game has that. And it feels more like brinksmanship. It feels like, you know, sometimes you're telegraphing where you want to go. Sometimes you want to do like a feint. And I think area control for me that's less successful is something like El Grande. It does not speak to me. It's to me, that's a lot of like putting meeples out on a board, putting them out, you do a lot of effort, and then they come back to you because someone just did some random thing. Not random, but like they do something. So things go out, things come back, things go out, things come back. And it just feels kind of like abstract and sometimes just feels bad. And this one, it's like, well, you know, like I did something really bad to David at one point. I think I stole one of his meeples. And he was like, no, it's the game. It's the game. And I think that this game just sets the tone that people have that moment where they don't say this game is mean. They say, oh, this is the vibe of the game. It's all good. And then it's also like, it's over in 45 minutes to an hour. And so I thought it was like a shockingly successful game.
Yeah, really fun. I was glad I picked that up.
Super
I picked that up and Ego at the same time, and I'm not sure how much I'm going to play Ego, but Silos was a really good pickup. 3 of these games came out at the same time with the same sort of silly space theme, and if you're going to pick up one of them, I would say Silos for sure would be the one I would choose.
And credit to the publisher for really thinking outside the box on how to turn a dusty, Roman theme into something that's just kind of funky and bizarre and inviting. Like it's really,
and it fits so perfectly. It's like, yes, cows are wild. Of course they are.
Yeah, of course. Why not have a cow be the
humans? I actually don't even know, what was it in the original game. Were you collecting votes from different senators or something? I have no idea.
I looked at some pictures and it looks like it was there was instead of a UFO, there's like a proctor or something like that. And the proctor goes, I'm sure it was like votes or citizens, and you're probably people in the government. It's like all that sort of dry shit that I don't even mind that. It's just like it's so overdone that it's just when you see something like this that's so colorful and bright and silly. I don't know. I love a game that wants you to laugh and have just says it's really trying to have you have fun. I really respect that in the design. So what about you, Trey? What have you played recently? Anything fun and notable?
I played Ayar with you too. That's what I played. It's been a little bit of a gaming ghost town. What I played a ton of is Rummy Cube. That was my December, was playing Rummy Cube with
that's a hot game.
with my in-laws while they were in town for 2 months. So there was a lot of games of Rummy Cube. Rummy Cub. I call it Rummy Cube. I don't know which one's right. It was that apparently Hot Streak was a little too complicated for them.
Okay.
So this was kind of the crowd. We also had kind of a failed attempt at harmonies.
Okay.
It was like herding the cats of getting everyone to actually sit at the table to hear the explanation was too much.
Mm-hmm. Do your in-laws play like hearts or cribbage or anything like that? Like basic sort of
They play games? Rummy Cube.
Okay, sure.
That's what it was. Like no new games were going to be learned. We tried a couple of times. Hot Streak was definitely a hit with the relatives back in Texas. Okay. I brought that for a Christmas Day game and then had to leave early, and they played it without me, just using the instruction manual because Hot Streak has that kind of good, just turn the page, learn the rules of thing that makes it so accessible. So that was a hit. I have a cousin whose family plays games, and so I can often bring games to Thanksgiving or Christmas and then just leave them. That's that's what I do. So I gave her Hot Streak and Agent Avenue, which
that's another game you've played recently, right?
It is. I broke my winning streak. My long BGG Con winning streak of Agent Avenue, and all it took was pairing up with Ben for it to end instantly.
I'm not good at Agent Avenue whatsoever, but it's an immensely fun game. I mean, that was only my 3rd time playing it. I am still learning the cadences and how to do it, but yeah, I definitely messed it up for us. But I also had a bad hand. I mean,
I don't know that you did actually. We were also up against an Agent Avenue expert
in Tim,
and I'm not talking about Jordan.
Enough to pair up with.
Jordan's very good at it, but Tim has played it like 40 times, so he really understands.
No, I'm terrible at it. Trey's beaten me, 5 out of 6 times. The only time I was able to win was with Tim's help. So,
but Trey,
I really enjoy it. I think it's really fun.
It's a brilliant game.
Player, but I'm excited to try it too. Also.
Was it on your list, Ben? I saw your video. I'm trying to remember. Agent Avenue's on your top 10, or
it's the 2024 game.
Oh, what?
I have a feeling
that's crazy.
Yeah, you guys, trust me, it would have been up there.
I think I'm putting it on my 2025 list anyway.
Yeah, just I never heard
it's
of
so
anything about it
annoying.
until the last few months.
It's so annoying list making in with the board game industry because these games are listed as 2024, but like you can't access them until like 9 months later, and all these different games arrive at different times. It's like you know, they don't really think about the content creators when they release their games.
I was watching like a top 10 of 2025 list, and they said really the game release season, I forget who said this, is like it starts in October and it continues through September. And you know, that should be the, you know, that should be and then you put out the list at the end of December for the previous October through September or whatever. And I kind of am tempted to do that, right? Because like that's, you know, Essen is really the start of releases for the next year because you're not going to be able to get those games right away. And then you do the list in December for, you know, the previous October through September. And, you know, that I don't know. I kind of want to adopt that. I think it's a good idea.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, think about Shackleton Base. Like, here's this great game for many of us that came out at sort of the tail end of 2024 or like October, November in Europe. Barely, you couldn't get it in America for the past, you know, many months or the following many months until about June or July, it started to arrive. And so now it's like, it's a 2024 game, but for a large number of people, this is a game that only arrives in 2025, but it's not going to get, does it get put on a 2025 list, but it's not, then you have to do a new to me list. And if you're a content creator and you're trying to like have an exciting piece of content that just says best of, and then you have to sort of couch it with new to me, it doesn't have the same thing. So it is like actually quite frustrating for those of us who enjoy making lists. It's definitely a low issue in the world of any issue, but there is something like I understand. It sort of speaks to the larger kind of frustrations I have with the board game industry that like I understand why it is the way it is, but it doesn't mean I have to enjoy it, which is that, you know, a game is supposed to be coming out. When does it arrive? Who knows? You know, whereas other, you know, like an album, when an album drops, an album drops. When a book drops, a book drops. But I understand why it's the way it is. I do, but it doesn't mean I have to like it anymore. It's like, it's annoying. You hear about a game and you have no way to know when you're going to ever encounter it, when it's going to show up, when you're going to see it at your favorite vendor, where you're going to see it online. But it is what it is.
I don't know if it was like this for you guys or if you guys really participated in this bit of culture, but when I was growing up, GameStop would have a list of games that were about to release and then the dates they would come out. And like that date, they would be in store. And so you could look and you'd know. And then if you went in on that that specific day, you could buy the game there. And that was really cool. But board games have like, you know, because it's a smaller industry, the distribution problems and, you know, whatever. I don't know. But it would be fun to have like that kind of like, what if we had a release day for Speakeasy?
Exactly.
It's like, okay, Speakeasy, and then everyone's playing it the next day. That would be really a fun like bit of community building.
I think that
would be cool.
I feel like Stonemaier actually tries for that,
right? For big release games in stores. I don't know.
Stonemaier is pretty good about saying this game arrives, is going on the market on this day, but they sort of, I think, have their. I don't know anything about the way this industry works really, or if Stonemaier is a big.
I think as long as we're still committed to cardboard board games, it's going to be hard for this to be a unified release date without it being incredibly economically suboptimal. So, so what's the point? Yeah, video games. Yeah, you can have absolutely servers go live at 12 a.m. on November 7th, whatever. Like that can happen on things.
But in the 80s and the 90s, by the way, Jordan, which is long before your time, but when a video game came out, it was not like it was like with GameStop. I have vivid memories of waiting for Super Mario Brothers 2 and Super Mario Brothers 3, and you just had to hope it would trickle into your game store. There was it was released, but you had no idea if you would actually like where it actually would be. Of course, now the video game industry is but now the video game industry is big, and so they have, I guess they have the channels to have a unified release, and that is one of many reasons why I am trying to convert people to the board game hobby, because A, you need people to play with mostly, unless you want to do some solo gaming. And B, I really do feel like the more people that are in the hobby, I think it actually would be better and like for us to just engage with the hobby, of course. We can get better. I imagine if there's more money in the hobby and there's more people using the hobby, that hopefully we could get things like unified release dates and like games are accessible, you know,
in this case, this is a Danish game. And Jordan, you were the first person I knew who had a copy of this. And like, when did you get it? Yeah, like it seemed like you were the first one that I knew.
Matt brought it to our attention at BGG-Con.
Oh, it was Matt that had it. Okay, but still, that's like November 2025 for this 2024 game. Like there was like nobody in America had really, that I know, now every viewer is going to say, oh, well, I knew about it or something. But like it's been hard to get. Also, like even now it's hard to get because it's
hard.
It's been a success. So
it was actually, was it Spiel des Jahres recommended or something like that? So it got some accolades there. I had never heard of it either until BGG-Con. And when we were recording our BGG-Con episode, Trey, you started talking about how you played this game, Agent Avenue. But the way you described it was like a 5-minute game where there was like, it sounded almost like a chaos bomb, like just like, well, okay, we played some cards and it was over. So I was like, what is this crazy
when done
game
properly
that Trey is talking about? But you guys were playing by the wrong rules, we found out.
Nope.
We played one game by the
one game.
Actually,
maybe
we
by
played
the
one
rule.
session, which was like 3 games, but obviously only.
But I think this is more like this is more like a boxing match, and we played a number of matches that were kind of like somebody versus Mike Tyson type of thing, where it was an early like round 1 KO versus some epic 15 round. Going to the scorecards at the end kind of situation, which was more like what we had, although still ended with a knockout with our game yesterday or 2 days ago. But real quick, just so that people understand what this game is, this is a game that's either 2 players or 4 players, and it's a card-playing game in which 2 agents are kind of chasing each other around a very small track. So it's basically like if I catch you, we win. If they catch us, they win type of thing. And the main card play is every round there's an up card and a down card. And the opposing team, whether it's 2 players or 4 players, is going to pick, do they want the up card that they know or the down card that they don't know? And whichever one they take, they add and take the effects of, and this is a movement card. And whichever one you don't take, the team that had placed the cards originally has that effect happen to them. So it's very much a kind of iocane powder. Where's the poison? Wow, this seems like a really good card for us. So what kind of card must they be hiding down here if they're willing to, show this card and give us to this? So maybe we should take the down card. Like it's always kind of putting people to make a decision based upon what do we think they're doing. You're always playing the theory of the mind of I have to if I understand what they're thinking, I will guess correctly here. But if not, and sometimes you don't have a good option. But it ends up being a lot of fun, that kind of, did we guess right? Did we figure out what they were trying to do? And then that's repeated again and again, which is really kind of delightful.
Yeah, and it's very fun. It's interesting because in a 2-player game, you put a card up and you put a card down, and your opponent's trying to guess what you did. But in a 4-player game, 1 player on a team puts a card up, and then the other one has to put one down. And there's
you may not even know what the hell your partner's doing. Yes,
yeah, right, exactly. Like, you don't know what your partner's doing, but also like if you're the second player, like why did you put that up card down? I don't have a good card to play with that, or so there's a second level of that same
recrimination
with your partner, and then also with your team. So I don't know, it's really fun. I still haven't played it into multiple people's brains.
Yeah, I haven't played it at 2 either, but I really love it. And the notable thing about our play the other night was that Tim was told us that he likes to do I forget how he phrased it, but basically the basic bare bones game, because the game actually has these like special power cards that like if you land on certain parts of the black market cards, if you land on certain parts of the track, then you can get like a card that's going to like give you a special power, and that really can accelerate the game. But we actually played without those cards, where it was purely just about our card play and getting into each other's heads. So the game was longer, but I thought it was great that it was a game purely of trying to perceive what the other people were perceiving. What'd you guys think about without the items?
I think it still holds up. I think either way is good. So many times there's like an extra thing, and it doesn't actually add that much I just think, this is a slightly different way. I would need to play more before I could be confident that Tim is correct. He's got enough plays that I kind of believe him. Like, it's definitely going to add more chaos with the items, the black market cards, as they're called. They throw in more wrinkles and make the game maybe a little bit more like Blood on the Clock Tower. Just in terms of adding
chaotic.
Just a little bit more chaos into what is like the simple trying to figure out what people are thinking might be more interesting. And do these cards get in the way, or is it interesting to add that extra bit of chaos and complexity? But the cards themselves, like there's only 38 cards in the game, and I teach game design at USC, and my students are always having to design simple games that teach and play in under 20 minutes. And they often complain correctly how hard it is to design a simple game that can be taught and played in under 20 minutes. And I kind of feel like Agent Avenue is a perfect one for saying, like, this is a game you can teach and play this in 20 minutes usually, pretty reliably, and it is a really kind of a great bit of elegant design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really, really solid, and I feel like they'll probably do another printing, and it'll just be exploding everywhere. Another game. Let's see, in terms of
if I might segue here, Ben, because I have another game very similar to Agent Avenue that I'd like to talk about for a second.
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is Pacts, and it's a new game, and I'm showing it on camera for those on YouTube who are curious. It's a new game that comes in a tiny little box from DVC Games, the people who made Signal and Here Lies and games like that. And it's played on this tiny map, and it is also an I Split You Choose game. So in it, every round, you're going to put out like four mediocre cards that look something like this. That might say, it looks something like this, like move one cube or add, one cube to a purple location and one superpower card, like whatever. And it's whoever's turn it is, they're going to make two piles of cards, one over here and one over here. And they're also going to put the second move marker on one of those cards. And then the other player gets to pick. And all you're doing is dividing these cards and moving cubes around this board and scoring points based on these little tiles that are on the board. And that's it. And there are special abilities in the game. There, that are different. There's a whole stack of them because there's, one card that lets you trigger your special ability. But I don't know. I'm so excited to play this. It just came out. And like the I Split You Choose mechanic from Agent Avenue is here in spades. You also get to play one card from your secret deck that you decide, I'm definitely doing this round, and it doesn't go into the I Split You Choose. So you have a little bit of control that way. It just seems really cool and really fun. So this is designed by Ben Brin, and the art's by Guinevere Singley by DVC Games. I would just say check it out. It looks really cool. And when I ordered it, there was like a 2-for-1 deal. Not 2-for-1. There was a slight discount if you bought 2 games from DVC. And Signal's great, Here Lies is great, Scream Park is apparently great. There's a ton of really good games this publisher puts out in these tiny little boxes. So I just wanted to give it a shout because it's one of the things I'm most excited to play.
Very interesting. I actually do not love Here Lies and Signal, but I think it's very cool. I think it's very cool what they are doing.
Actually, Jordan, you're wrong. These are not great games.
I just want to say, I have a dissenting view on that, but I think it is cool that they're able to cram so much game into these tiny, tiny boxes, which is wild.
Yeah. I think you might even like this one, Ben, even though you don't like those two. Those two are more social games. They're like deduction games. And this is
you're not social. That's true, Ben.
What are these people? How do I interact with them? It does look cool. I really am growing to love what is it? I split you take.
I split you choose.
I split you choose. Yeah.
I actually got it. Speaking of that was a Danish game before, but Agent Avenue. But I actually, when I was in the Netherlands in 2024, I picked up a random game that I saw at Historic called Don Juan, which I still haven't played, but it's all that as well. And I'm like, maybe it's time for me to dust off my random Don Juan game I got. That as like one of those games I picked up. Yeah, because I was like, it was a small box game. You know, sometimes you go to a store and I'm like, I want to get something. I'm in Amsterdam. I need to bring a game back from Amsterdam. Don Juan, I've never heard of or seen this before, so therefore this must be a hidden gem. And so I just got this game, and now I'm like, what am I going to do with Don Juan? But maybe if we're like riding the wave of, you know, I split, you choose. Maybe this is Don Juan's moment. Now, a game that I recently played with Jordan. Actually, Jordan and I played a lot of games recently together.
That's true.
Let's see. Let's talk about the epic, intense experience that is A Place for All My Books. A Place for All My Books. So, A Place for All My Books. I randomly bought this from Geeky Teas in Burbank. I had heard something about it along the way, and I just really like the theme, which the theme of the game is that you play as an introvert who spends all their time in their apartment moving books around or rearranging them into pleasant and pleasing ways around your apartment. Maybe take some books from the bedroom and move them to the living room, you're like, I want all green books in the bathroom, things like that. So you're moving around all your books in your apartment, and as you do that, you are building up your all-important social battery. And once the battery has reached an acceptable level, you go into town and you go to the library, or you go to the bookstore, maybe you go to the shop, you buy things, you cavort, maybe you go to the park, and you spend your social battery, and then you bring back all these new books you got, and you bring them back to your apartment, and you rearrange them some more. And that is the game loop. It's actually a very simple game loop. So I got it because I felt like I needed to play another 2025 game ahead of, you know, the new year. I was like, I need to start playing more of these games for the year-end countdowns. So I just got this game. And so we played it with David Gillison. And I have to say, I really enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed it significantly more than I thought I would. I thought it'd be like a fun game, but I couldn't believe how very quickly I was drawn into it and how I was very delighted by it. I loved the theme, but I found the puzzle to be a really entertaining puzzle. And so it really caught me by surprise. What did you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I thought it was really fun as well. I think the theming is great. The idea of building up your social battery and then spending it to go to town to do worker placement actions is great. It's incredible theming, and it works very well mechanically. So I was really happy with that. I think some of the main scoring in the game is what are called little project cards, I think. And they like tell you to put different books in different places around your house. Mm-hmm. And that's it's a really fun puzzle. It's really enjoyable. It's not super thematic. It's like, okay, have, 4 stacks of green books in your bathroom or something, it's like kind of random stuff like that. But the puzzle of it is really fun. And then the worker placement is, it's not super interactive. Like, you're not really blocking anything. You just get a little bonus if someone goes to a space you wanted to go to. But I think that's fine for what the game is. It's quick. I think it was maybe an hour or something like that. The puzzle's really fun. The theming's delightful. Oh, and one of the best bits of theming is you can get these item cards, and they're called other neat stuff. So you might say, I'm going to go downtown. I'm going to try and get a few books, and maybe I'll find some other neat stuff. And like that theming just really worked for me. I found the names of those cards delightful.
Yeah, the theming was really wonderful. I think the projects you were talking about, I think they're called working on a little. Yeah, I think it's called like a little project. It's just called a little project. I'm just working on a little project. I'm working on a little project at home. It was really cool how they took just sort of like everyday language and actually sort of commodified it, I guess, into these cards. So I thought you were going to hate the game personally, Jordan. When I brought it to you, I was like, Jordan's going to hate this.
I was also thinking, I don't know if I'm going to love this. Although you did say, when you texted me, you said, this is such a Jordan game. And I didn't realize you were joking at the time. I was like, okay, great. Can't wait to play it. It's very much not the type of thing I would normally enjoy, but I found myself really liking it a lot. So
yeah, I thought it was very fun. I liked it way more. My only real big criticism off the gate, out of the box, is that the artwork is really skews young. I think they're trying to, maybe appeal to. It really looks like it's for kids, and it doesn't make any sense that it would be for kids, because I think the idea of being an introvert and grappling with being an introvert and like how you spend your time, and you have your own apartment that's not the journey of a 13-year-old. And yet all the art is, I mean, a 13-year-old may grapple with being an introvert versus an extrovert, but an introvert is not wondering, like, oh, I live in an apartment by myself and I'm deciding when I'm going to go into town and when I'm going to come back into town, and maybe I'll get a French press when I'm in town. Like, that's because you can get a French press. So like, it's weird that all the art.
It's surprising you
like
want this to be like a Darren Aronofsky film or something.
I just
the artwork to me looks very
mature.
cozy. I think
it's cozy, but it actually crosses into twee from cozy. I think it's almost trying so hard to be like, look at this cozy game. It's cozy. We're cozy. It's actually kind of like,
you got a whole bag full of books. Like, there's a little string-drawn bag full of little wooden books, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I just think that the art, like, I think maybe the depiction of some of the humans in it did not need to look like it was from like a young adult novel. I think we could have gone like in a more mature direction and it'd been really great. But here's the good news. This game is available. I think it's like available in Barnes & Noble. I think that there's some deal with Barnes & Noble.
There's a Barnes & Noble edition, by the way. Yeah. Yes. That has Barnes & Noble on the board itself.
That's funny.
So.
And apparently the solo mode, actually, here's what's so brilliant. Here's something that's hilarious. The solo mode, which I haven't played. When you play the solo mode, the bot that you play against is a girl named Penelope, and she's an extrovert. And she spends all day in town, basically messing things up in town for you. And she never has to go home because she has the powers of extroversion. So she just goes from shop to shop and chats with everyone. And she has all these special powers. But you, the introvert, have to go home. And so you're trying to be better than Penelope, the extrovert, which I think is a hilarious spin on the solo mode bot situation. Just
Such
some
great
brat.
Yeah.
Penelope talking to everyone and making friends with the ease of social communication.
Right.
So I really enjoyed A Place for All My Books. It was a big surprise for me, and I'm really excited to play. I want to play it a lot. I just think it's a delightful game. So, Jordan,
yeah, I think it's one I'll pick up because I think I could play it with Gigi. I think she'd like it too.
She would like it. Yeah,
and it's just a nice little like hour-long-ish puzzle game. I'm not sure how much replay it has because there's no asymmetric starts and there's no asymmetric powers really or anything like that. So it's gonna be the same game every time. But for a few games, I think it'll be really fun. Yeah,
I think so too. Now, another game we played, which is very similar to, as long as we're talking about A Place for All My Books, might as well just make here's one that just a lot of overlap. I feel like Twilight Imperium Thunder's Edge. It's basically like A Place for All My Books.
Jordan, are your dogs okay? We had a dog attack there or no? Did I imagine?
There was a loud dog attack.
Ben, you've trained me that when there's some horrible noise going on in the podcast, you acknowledge it and move on. So sorry.
That's what I like to do. Well, the dogs were part of Thunder's Edge, basically. Every now and then they would come in, circle around the room.
That's right. They're chiming in with their views of the games.
We played that too. But yeah, we've obviously come onto this podcast and talked many times about our various sessions of Twilight Imperium. But we're actually here today to here's some new content on Twilight Imperium. The new expansion, Thunder's Edge, arrived this fall, and we played not just one, but we played 2 games of it in December. Did you talk about this?
2 weeks, which is very impressive of us.
Yeah, within 2 weeks. Now, we did not play. There's sort of 2 sides of this expansion. One side of it is like a build your own faction thing that we have not played with yet. But what we did do was play with Thunder's Edge, the Thunder's Edge part of Thunder's Edge, which sort of adds more stuff to Prophecy of the Kings and the base game. Jordan, you want to tell everyone what were the new additions and then sort of like your first initial thoughts on how this expansion landed for you?
Sure. So there's 5 new factions, which I think we've played with all 5 of them across our 2 games, I believe. And then there is a new area.
We did not play with the Crimson Rebellion.
No, Paul played them in our first game.
That was the Crimson Rebellion?
Yeah, I know.
In that case, I take it back.
Paul's not here to defend himself. He didn't really use their ability very well, but yeah.
By the way, you could never sound nerdier than when you interrupt someone to say, wait, we didn't play with the Crimson Rebellion.
So
It's just a
we
pure
played
nerd talk.
with all 5 factions, so we can talk about them all. They're all pretty interesting, I think. And then there's a new area of space called the Fracture, which may or may not enter play. And it has 4 very valuable planets in it. And when it enters play, it will populate some special wormholes on the board that are under control of the player who sort of populates it into play. And those wormholes only go to and from the fracture, so they don't interact with the other wormholes on the board. So that's a whole new area that's interesting in space. Every faction has a new card called a breakthrough, which makes it easier for them to research tech in some way, and then also gives them a really powerful special ability. And then there's Thunder's Edge, which is another new planet that players can also optionally bring into play when researching their breakthroughs. And that is like a very valuable planet, kind of akin to Mechatol Rex, but focusing more on resources than influence. I think that's all the new stuff, which it doesn't sound like a lot, but the breakthroughs dramatically change how the factions operate. And they're kind of used in this design as the balancing tool. So if you had a very strong faction, from original TI plus POK, they would get a weaker breakthrough. And if you had a weaker faction, they would get, a more impactful breakthrough. And so I think that's a cool bit of balancing because it's one new card for every faction that gives them a new powerful ability that they can unlock. So yeah, I think there's some cool stuff in there. I think the breakthroughs are really cool. I like the new factions. I think some of them are more exciting than others. Crimson Rebellion's very cool. I also think
I played with a tough one. I played with
there's some Dronar, which is cool, the Deep Rot. And then Ben played the Firmament, which seems really cool, but also might be overly weak. Ben, maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah. I played with them. They're the most fascinating new faction in that, like, you have this faction that is called the Firmament. And over the course of the game, you can do certain things where you can hatch what's called a plot. And when you hatch a plot on someone, you basically can score other people's objectives. And when you do that, you hatch a plot. And essentially, you're setting yourself up for a time when you decide that you are going to unsheath from the Firmament and become the Obsidian. So your faction changes to a whole new faction, and all those plots that you've sown, you turn these cards over, and it turns out these other players become your puppets. And now, like with Jordan researches gets a new tech, then I can get the tech if I pay resources. Or if like James does an action, then I can do the secondary part of that action for free. So you can piggyback on other people's actions. So it's like a really fascinating faction, but it's a really hard faction to play, and you're 100% at the mercy of other players. So it's like you have to play like I guess you're trying to play like a very friendly and amenable meta game where you want to like work with people so that way, because you start off so poor. And it was a really, really tough battle. I had a bad slice. I played badly. I had a tough faction. So it was like I would not say it was the most fun faction I played. It was probably the least fun I've had with a faction in TI. But and I looked it up, and like pretty much across the board, people are like, yeah, this faction is really weak. Everyone's like, it's no one knows how to, but also no one knows how to play it yet. So that faction's not getting stellar reviews, and yet then I'm more fascinated to see if I can crack the code of it. So I kind of want to play it again. And another game I played, The Last Bastion, where you can galvanize things and get extra dice and everything. I would say that the expansion so far is great. I mean, like, it's just more stuff. It does some interesting rebalancing of the initial game. These breakthroughs, they do make it easier to go up your tech tree. And I imagine that the consequence of that is you sort of can get to the tech that you need, and then you can focus on other parts of the game, which means that maybe other strategy cards might be taken instead of the tech strategy card. They've also adjusted the functionality of some of the strategy cards. So there have been some nice tweaks. And I think it sort of like layers in very nicely with the other two expansions pretty easily. So I think it's like a more is more. This side of the box is a more is more thing, and I think it works nicely.
Yeah, I think all of that's right. It's all very fun, and it all sort of goes well together. I want to add, and probably we should do a whole review of that box once we've played Twilight.
Yeah, we'll do a whole
other
thing
code that it adds. But we've also been playing with a Milty draft, which turns TI into an Age of Innovation-like game, where we do a draft before the game starts for your slice, which is sort of the planets closest to you, your position around the board, your turn one draft pick order for the strategy cards and your faction itself. And that, which we do over like 3 or 4 days before the game starts, has added a lot to the game for me. I just love that mechanic in Age of Innovation. And I think it's so cool in this game as well, because you see the pool of 9 factions or whatever, and you're like, okay, 6 of these are going to be in our game. So which faction does well? Where do I want to sit? Who do I want to be next to? You know, which of these planet slices is going to work best for me? Like that whole drafting, and then what, you know, who's going to pick what in front of me? What do I need to pick before someone behind me goes? Those considerations are all really fun too. And even though that's not really part of the Thunder's Edge expansion, this is my first time using those mechanics, or using that, you know, variant, I guess. And I really like it. So I'm excited to talk more about that too. And if you're going to play TI, I would recommend checking it out. You can just Google like Milty, Milty, and maybe add that for a little extra spice in your next TI game.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I mean, I also feel like it's really fun to build the board as a table. I've always really enjoyed that as kind of like this opening ritual to the game. But I think the draft was incredibly fun. And like you said, it's a deeper experience to play with the draft. So I think like either way you go, you're going to have a fun time. But we'll go in.
For me,
go on.
No, go ahead, Ben.
No, I was just going to say.
I really like building the board too. I think that's also very fun. But the added depth plus the fact that you save time on game day when TI is such a long game,
that's a big thing.
Makes the Milty add a lot of value for me. I think our last game, some of these factions, we should say, add time to the game. Deep Rot adds time. Council Kalaris adds time because there's new like phases almost that are introduced every round. And so like our last game was like 14 hours, which is the longest game of TI I've ever played. And so saving like 30 minutes to an hour of map building at the front end can also be good. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a long game, but it felt like out of the box, or not out the gates, I should say. Like everything was up for discussion at all times. And so there was a lot of back and forth negotiation and discussion. And it was incredible fun, but it was also it was a bit of a grind because it was like everything became a debate. But that's the game. I mean, that's what you want, you know. But let's move on.
We also had an attack, which adds a lot of time for those who are familiar. So there's we just had some of the. I think the game could have been much shorter with only one of those 3 factions in it, or something like that.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to piggyback on this conversation slightly is like bringing this back to Age of Innovation and the kind of draft at the beginning idea. My first play of Age of Innovation was terrible. Maybe it was the teach. Maybe it was the whatever, but it was overwhelming. I felt it was like too much to take in at a single sitting when I experienced that. And then we did an async, draft on playing on BGA. And that allowed me to like take the time to actually study all of the options and like do my research. And that completely changed the game for me, where like suddenly I loved Age of Innovation, and I also didn't feel that pressure of the ticking clock of people at the table. Is like, we got to do this draft before we play. So, hey, what are you waiting for? Let's go. That ended up making something like TI4, where, you're going to devote a ton of time. I think that's a great way for people to get up to speed on like, what are we actually doing in this game? What are the factions? Mm-hmm. What are the things to consider? Like, the more I can kind of offload that into my prep, it actually makes the whole experience feel much more in control and manageable, and not in that headspace of like, oh, I need to be making a decision even though we have 12 more hours to play of a game or something like that. Yeah. That makes it works with my personality. Is I can spend way too much time in an async game considering all of the possibilities, and that kind of gets my best play a lot of times.
It is. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. It does also set you up with TI4 to have a better idea of what the factions are that you'll be playing with and what to anticipate, and like you can sort of start to imagine like, okay, who am I gonna work with a lot in the game? Like, who might be a good ally? Who might be something I should be aware of? Let me look at this map a little bit. So you can do, like, I think the strongest point you made, Jordan, is that it just saves time. At the very least, it just saves time that you can sort of like get it going ahead of time. It also makes it more exciting because you've now had like a week of buildup of doing this draft, and now you're coming in and you'd be like, okay, let's see how like the effectiveness of this draft. Did we draft well? And how was this all gonna, play out which I really appreciate. But the other thing is that we were playing. It was 6 players who were like very experienced with Twilight, Imperium, and so
what's the name of this
also
game?
slows it down. Something a place for all my Twilights. But when everyone knows how to play the game, then people also know what things need to be considered, and you would think that would speed it up, but I think it actually slows it down because then there's a debate about everything, and again, that's not even really a complaint, but it's more like you have to be careful, and everything it felt like a particularly grueling game for me in terms of negotiating. I felt like everything was like. I feel like in other games I've played, it's like, hey, we should do this because this will be for the table. But instead, I felt like everyone was like, well, what do I get out of it? So every single thing became a negotiation. In fact, afterwards, I went to dinner I had like late night food with Paul, and we went to a Korean restaurant. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll get some like bibimbap. And Paul was like, I think I'll get the spicy pork. And then Paul was like, or we could split it. And I had this instinctive thing, like I was like, oh my god, I have to. What's my board position, right? And I was like, oh wait, this is not a board game negotiation. This is merely just hey, we can just split the food. But like after like 14 hours of every single thing was like, well, like, do I get a trade good? Do I get this? What are you gonna give me? Can I have this planet? It was like 14 hours of having to constantly reassess what the hell I was doing. That when Paul just merely proposed that we go halvesies on our food, I was like, is this going to disadvantage me?
Yeah.
I was like, it was crazy. I never had that happen after one of the games.
Just to return briefly to Twilight Imperium, I do think that like Paul's faction really makes like he played Mentak. It makes everything like hyper focused on what do I get out of this, and like really focused on the trade minutia, which honestly, I don't know how fun that was. I kind of want to not play with that faction for a minute. Because basically his faction skims a little bit off the top of each deal. So you kind of can't make deals that aren't really balanced. Like, there's no room for a little bit of extra juice in the deal. So anyways, but
well, it was a fun time, and I really enjoyed talking about it with my therapist later in the week. So
that's great.
Which is not a lie. Because you over this, I will say one thing these games in general, I talk about board games with my therapist all the time. Because the experience of sitting down and playing games with friends it brings out a lot. There's so many emotions. There's so many things that happen where I'm often thinking like, why did I react in that way? Why did I respond in this way? Why did that thing annoy me? And I always bring all this board game baggage right into my therapist's office. And it's great. I actually feel like I learned so much about myself through these games and also through talking it out with my therapist. So Twilight Imperium gave a nice variety of things to bring, a nice basket of issues. But enough. We have to talk about our game. Well, let's talk about our deep dive game of the week right now, or of the episode, I should say. And this is Ayar. And there's some debate about how to actually pronounce this game. But Ayar, Children of the Sun, I believe it's Ayar, not AR. It's Ayar. According to robots on the internet, it's Ayar. So this is designed by Fabio Lopiano and Mandela Fernandez-Grandin and artist Ian O'Toole. This is the third in a trilogy that started with Merv and then went to Sancore, and now we have arrived at Ayar, Children of the Sun. Trey, can you give like an elevator pitch on what this wacky game is all about, please?
Oh, that's a little tricky. I will do my best.
It is tricky.
Because this isn't a game where it's like, oh, this is modeling, clearing forests in order to build your timber industry. Maybe relating to another game we played this year. In this,
hello, it's obviously modeling the pilgrimage of a deity across South America. Duh.
Kind of. Okay, so on your turn, what are we doing here? We're accumulating. It's really abstract, a lot of what's going on. In this game, you're going to score sun points and moon points. Your final score will be the lowest of these two totals. And so you cannot neglect one or the other. And in fact, sun points may be harder to get than moon points. And so devoting yourself to sun points is important. But hey, that's just points. What does that mean, Trey? On your turn, you're taking one of your little action tokens. And so this is a worker placement game where you are placing one of your tokens onto one of the 4 IR tracks, which are color-coded. and taking one of the 4 kinds of actions on that track. When you do this, you take a house, would you say, from your player board.
Tambo.
A tambo, excuse me, a tambo from your player board, and you place it onto that map, onto that track, and then no one can take that action of that space ever again in the entire game. So also, when you do this, it advances the IR down that track. So as the game progresses, the IR are kind of making their way down these 4 winding tracks and opening up new action spaces, because you're either moving them 1 or 2 spaces every single turn. And so, right, you're kind of pursuing 4 different mini games based upon the 4 different types of actions that you can take. And I guess this is all kind of in service of the gods in a certain way. But what ends up being especially interesting is that we're going to play this game in 4 rounds. And at the end of each round, the 4 gods called Ayar, the one that has made the least amount of progress along its spiritual journey, I guess, is actually kind of like removed from the game and is reunited with its partner, essentially. Like is that kind of the way it works. So we go from having 4 tracks to 3 tracks in the second round to 2 tracks in the third round and only a single track in the fourth round. And because the game sets up a number of rewards where we will kind of say, hey, how well are you doing in this one mini game at certain breakpoints along the map, when certain paths start to close, so do your opportunities to score certain types of mini games. So it is in your best interest that if you are going heavy into 1 or 2 certain mini games, you want to keep the IR alive that are going to score the thing that you're doing. And then that becomes a nice little kind of like collective puzzle of, hey, I can't go this alone. Are my interests aligning with another player, at least on this one thing, in keeping the purple IR alive, so that we can get more scoring out of the corn mini game that we've both been pursuing here. There's a lot going on. So again, because this doesn't model something explicitly,
it's weird.
It's kind of hard to express what's happening there. There were some kind of comparisons to Trajan, where like you have different mini games going on in this game, and you probably can't play all 4 of them. At least not well. You probably need to punt 1. You probably can't punt 2, but Jordan kind of did in the last game successfully. So you often have some difficult choices.
I think you have to punt 2. I think you can only do 2. I think that's, well, I don't know. I think that's...
That may fall into strategy, but what ends up happening a lot of times, though, is you're having to look at the board and anticipate what other people are going to do, because it doesn't mean you can just do whatever action you want. The action you want might have to open up. You might have to be the one to open it up, and sometimes you can't. And so sometimes you need to play flexibly so that when opportunities present themselves to you, you can take advantage of them. But also you need to be making sure you're not creating big opportunities for other players. I don't know. Well, there's plenty I've missed because you have a personal player board also. And this is where the 4 mini games are kind of tracked. Although there's the map one over on the side that's different. But essentially you're trying to kind of like accumulate suns by either putting textiles together, collecting different sets of similar pottery, making progress down a map game, or even just feeding your damn people and opening up. And I don't know, they're supposed to represent settlements at the top there, where you feed and kind of open up suns and moon scoring from feeding people.
Yeah.
And
or maybe, I think those are just like your maybe harvesting maize. I mean, the whole idea is that essentially you've got these 4 mini games that you want to excel in, because the more you excel in these mini games, the more you're going to sort of basically log points in the form of either suns or moons, and you need both kind of points. And that is all tied into this idea that you have these growing tracks of actions that you can do, but each track is pretty much gonna die at the end of a round, leaving just one track at the end of the game. And you just have to, it's it's all about kind of managing which one of those tracks is going to stay alive and which one is going to die. And if it is going to stay alive, then was that track going to score? And then trying to understand what that track is going to score, but then not letting someone else who's doing really well with that opportunity do well. So maybe you care about the other track. And it's actually a remarkably difficult game to describe. A very, very difficult game.
I feel like I've done a poor job, but it's a tough task.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to it.
One of the cool things about the sun scoring, I will say though, is when you kind of like put together suns through one of these 4 mini games, you don't score them immediately. You have this little dial that tracks what your sun score is, and then at the end of each round, whatever your sun score is, that's how many sun points you get, and that creates a really interesting dynamic of, if I can actually score decent amount of sun early on in the game, like say, whoa, I can get 6 sun in my first turn. Those 6 suns are actually going to score 4 times total in the game, and so very often in games, you tend to build your engine knowing that you're going to bring it all together and score a bunch of points at the end. And this kind of balances that out. It's like, no, if you score points early, they'll have a chance to compound more over the course of the game. And that makes some of your choices more interesting of like, should I try to score less now because it will multiply more, or do I wait and have a big scoring later on in the game and maybe only score it once or twice? That creates a nice tension. Whereas Moon is exclusively endgame scoring. So,
well, I think that or it's more like one-time scoring with Moons. I think a good analog is actually Sandra from Kanban. And the reason why I say that is that in the game Kanban, you have all these different areas that you're working on, and this NPC named Sandra comes around, and she might arrive in one of those areas you're working on, and she's going to assess you. And her vibe is punitive and mean, although you can't play with nice Sandra, but no one plays with nice Sandra. Everyone wants mean Sandra. And she'll come along and she'll be like, why didn't you do that? Like, how badly are you doing at this thing? And depending on how badly you're doing, you will probably get punished. But the point is that when she comes along, you want to be in a position when she arrives to be at your best, because she's arriving. And then after she goes on, you can now start to slack and be bad at it. But when she shows up, you want to be ready for Sandra. And in this game, it's sort of the same thing, which is that these IRs are traveling across the board, and at different times, they're going to arrive at a scoring tile. And if an IR reaches that scoring tile and that tile says, hey, how are you doing with growing maize? You want to be damn well sure that your maze is doing excellently, so that way you get all those points for your maze. Because then if the IR keeps on going and you do quite well with your maze afterwards, that's fine, but the IR doesn't care anymore. The IR has moved on from evaluating your maze. I say this as someone who played this week and kept on doing really well on all the mini games after the IR had already walked on by. So much of this game is about like timing, making sure you're doing well at the time that the game is ready to evaluate you. And you never quite know when the game is going to evaluate you, and you never know if the game is going to evaluate you, because the evaluation rates are basically all determined by the players. And that is like, to me, that is kind of like the central mechanic of the game. Are these 4 tracks of deities that are slowly crossing the board, with the slowest one every round just dying off. And it's all, I think the main thing with this game, in 2 years, when I think about this game, the thing that I'm going to think about is, this is the game where the players are determining what actions and what scoring is available. It's a constant interaction between everyone on how this whole system is going to move forward. Jordan, what do you think about this central mechanic, or what I assess to be the central mechanic of these IRs and the tracks and the scoring and how they all work together?
Okay, so I agree that that's like the central mechanic, and it's very fun and it's very interactive, and it's remarkable how little play you have with that mechanic, and yet how impactful it is, because every round you have to activate each IR once, and then you have one wild thing. So you can activate one IR twice. And for each IR, you can move them 1 or 2 steps. So baseline, you're moving each IR 1 step, and you can move one IR up to 4 steps. This isn't a 4-player game. Up to 4 steps in theory, although that's very challenging to do because you have to manage your 2 movement slots on your board, and you only have 2 of them, et cetera, et cetera. So there's like not a ton you can do to interact with that, and yet it feels so impactful. Oh, Ben's moving the blue IR twice, and he's using his his wild activation to move the blue IR again. Wow, Ben really wants blue to survive. And so that serves as the interaction for the game, because if you look further on the blue track, you can see, okay, this track's going to score corn in the short term, and then weaving in the medium term, and then corn again in the long term. Okay, so Ben's building a corn game. Am I going to try and do better than Ben at corn, or am I going to try to make this blue IR die so that Ben's retire, so that Ben's investment in corn doesn't pay off? That's the sort of central interaction element. But you're doing that with 3 other people when you're playing a 4-player game, and you're sort of making agreements about which IR is going to survive. Like, okay, like I'm putting a little bit into blue, and it seems like the table's kind of decided that blue's going to live at this moment. So I need to, invest more into corn in the case of my example. And also you kind of have to figure that out. You have to be like, okay, the table's decided blue's going to live. I need to pivot. Or maybe I can persuade Trey to come along with me, and we'll try and get purple to outlast blue. And then we know that purple's going to outlast, and we can sort of invest more into the purple scorings. So that whole mechanic, it's really genius. It's very fun. And it's super interactive in a way that I feel like a lot of minigame Euros aren't.
Yeah, I think that's what's like so interesting about it, is that like in most games I've played of this, there inevitably comes a moment where people say, hey, do you want to help me get this IR going forward like 4 spots? This IR needs to travel 4 spots, otherwise it's going to be the end of the pack, the back of the pack at the end of the round, which means it's going to die. And we both are playing we're both playing the read game, the read gathering game, and even though we're competing on that game, we are in it together. So we don't want this track to shrivel up and die at the end of the round before we get at least our points from it, because we're competing over nothing then. There usually is a time where there's a lot of like negotiating at the table. Although interestingly, the game that we played earlier this week, we were kind of quiet on the negotiation front, and we sort of determined the reason why was that there was almost always a really obvious IR who was in the back and that we just couldn't save. So there was no point in really negotiating. Although I bet if we revisited, there probably was room for negotiating. But like it's so cool that you're having these weird détentes with people where you're both going head to head over the same little mini game, and yet at the same time you're coming together to preserve the sanctity of the mini game in a really, really weird way. But Trey, you did something interesting, because this week you also just kind of like you went really hard on a single mini game, and you really put a lot of energy to make sure that mini game was going to score. So you're putting all your energy into a single IR, and you were just focusing on one game. What was that experience like for you? Did that feel like a worthwhile
Did that feel like a mistake? It felt like a mistake.
Or a mistake.
It felt like a mistake. And I think my game probably had a very big impact on everybody else because I was doing something different. I was not playing the corn game. I wasn't playing the read game for a while either. The whole effect of it, though, is that I was pushing a particular line incredibly hard. And so that meant that the kind of discussions you were talking about often weren't possible because it was kind of preordained that, not preordained, but it was looking very clear. It's like, well, purple is clearly surviving. So there were less opportunities to kind of work out alliances on the other tracks. I feel like sometimes it's worth forming an alliance just to say, like, it might even be like, this IR is probably going to die, but we need it to score our corn here first before it dies. Mm-hmm. Like the really thing we can't happen is that the round ends and it's on spot 13 and it didn't get to 14 so that you and I, Ben, can score our, pottery at this point, that type of thing. I think we're still, at least I'm still in the stage of the game where weighing the 4 different mini games against each other in terms of their rewards is still a thing I'm contemplating. I have, suspicions after just 2 plays that the investment in some games may be a little bit more productive than others. I have no proof of that after 2 plays, but some of the treks seem to generate these. What do we call the tokens? That allow you to kind of like up
the
your
Viracocha.
the Viracocha
Viracocha,
allow you to actually kind of like invest in tech. Like that, this is the tech of the game where, like, hey, if I get 2 Viracocha, then I can, like, every single time I go to play pottery, I'll have +1 action point, which is a very big deal for, for taking pottery. And they have a number of kind of different tech options you can do. And I would say, like, the option I went in collecting tapestries or textiles, which was what I had completely avoided in my first game, and I wanted to kind of check out this other minigame when I played this time, was that it did not actually generate a lot of Viracoches for me, whereas I think the game I played the first time, where I'd gone heavy on read, heavy on food, had generated a tremendous amount of Viracoches. It generated a lot of tech, and so I had more of what felt more of like an actual engine, steam engine building in terms of the momentum of my game, and that more resembled what Jordan did in his game. So in my small sample size of 2, I'm a little leaning towards but who knows. I ended up playing a game where I did not have much engine at all, and that was frustrating.
Right. I can imagine that. I have played the weaving heavy strategy, and I did lose that game. But I did get a lot of Viracochas that way. It's just more
You have
expensive.
to get the 4-point ones, right?
Right. It's more. The other ones sort of dole out Viracochas more randomly, or just for like the boat.
Well,
game
the reed game is a race.
Pottery is random, but the Viracocha one is like you can always get it. The weaving one is you can always get it. It's just expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's sort of it takes us a little bit to this
action point.
The Viracochas. Action points and gosh, there was still some other stuff I want to say about the tracks. So I think I'm going to circle back to that because we're already here in this area, and what's all these mini games, you can do them like with a certain degree of strength. Like the basic level is like an action 1 strength thing. So the easiest example is that there's a super simple. Well, they're all super simple, but there's like a thing that the corn, or the food, or the maize, whatever you're going to call it. That section of the board, you have cubes on your player board. And for a power 1 version of playing that mini game, you take 1 cube off your board and you put it on a central board. But a power 4, you take 4 cubes off. So essentially, the stronger your power, the more you can do with that action. And that's all tied into this like grid of tambos that's on your player board. And there's a small puzzle that you're playing where you're removing these houses from rows. And if you've removed 3 houses from the rows, when you take the action, you're going to do a power of 3, yada, yada, yada. And so what this all sort of trickles down to is that this is all in pursuit of these points, the sun and the moons that we've been talking about. And all of the mini games sort of put you in a position where they say, if you go in this direction, you can get a lot of suns, but you might not get a lot of moons. Or if you go in this direction, you might do really well with the moon points, but you might not do so well with the sun points. And so a lot of it is about kind of like feeling out how you're going to budget your points and your actions. And I actually think that's like a really cool little puzzle with the mini games. And to that end,
that's interesting, Ben. I've never felt that. I've never felt like I'm choosing between sun and moon. I always felt like I'm pursuing both, and they're pursued slightly differently, but they're on parallel tracks. Like, for instance, the boating game or the corn game, some spots uncover suns, some spots uncover moons, but the moons are always at the end of the tracks. So whenever you uncover suns that are more towards the beginning of the tracks, you're working towards uncovering those moons, for example. Or the boating game, it's like every house puts out a sun. Right. Every so far you go on the boating track puts out a sun, but if you go further on the track, you also get more moon points or something like that. I don't know.
I guess maybe I think the way we've always played the boating is that we always go as far as possible because we're trying to get moons, which is at the end of this boating area. But like theoretically, you could maybe spam out a bunch of those houses in the front of that map by going in sort of circles and not have to spend as many. I'm talking off the top of my head here because I don't have the map in front of me. But like theoretically, you could probably do some low action kind of stuff to put out a bunch of houses down there, and maybe you could get your suns out, like spam a high sun before you get high moon in the reed. I think that's either way. The reed gathering area is maybe not as strong of an example, but like with the corn, for example, you can take a little bit off of each section of corn on the player board because there's corn everywhere. And if you concentrate in certain areas, you can get moon points, but not a lot of sun points. But if you sort of dabble in all the areas, you can get a bunch of sun points, but not a lot of moon points. I'm just imagining the listener listening to this and be like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, exactly. The game is one of the things that's kind of interesting is a little bit of a sideline from all of the stuff we've been talking about is the way the actual placement of your tambos works, in that you have this 4x4 grid of your tambos. And as you are removing one in order to kind of place it in the action that you do, that will actually determine how many action points your action will have, because you're playing a line, either vertically or horizontally, that your what would we call the piece, the step marker or something like that?
Yeah, step marker.
Where you place your step marker will determine how many action points you have. And like I was thinking about it after the game, where like I'd probably done a really suboptimal deploy of my step markers in some way. Like there actually is something too of like, hey, my first action is always only going to be a single action point, but my second can be a 2 action point action, and then my third action can be a 3 action point action. And what actual tambo you remove to set things up is something I probably needs to be micromanaged a lot better than I did, especially because as soon as you complete 4 of them in a row, you get a reward. And the timing of that is also like an interesting question that we've done. And so I think if I were to play this again, I might devote a lot more thought even to like how I'm removing my tambos from the grid, and even thinking like, oh, is there an ideal way to do this?
There's a lot of game in that decision. There's like a lot, because and I'm not going to get into the weeds with it unless anyone wants to hear more about the suns and the moons. But like you could, if you pull 3 tambos in a row, literally in a row, your 4th tambo in that row will be a power of 4. But if you pull 1 tambo from a column and the tambo you pull from that column happens to be the 4th one on that row, even though you've removed the 4th one on that row, since you're approaching it from a column orientation, you're getting a power of 1. So you kind of like want to minimize those moments where you're getting a power of 1 when you could be doing a high power thing. It's sort of it's a subtlety, but like there is like a flow to how you use that grid, which is like a really fascinating puzzle. And it's like always like how you're going to use those action points can be depending on what is like the immediate thing that's happening with those mini games. And I think, Jordan, if I were to revise what I was saying about the suns and the moons, maybe it's more like this. You could, I think in all the games, if you decide to go for high sun quickly, you're probably going to sacrifice moon points. But if you try to go for, if you try to like line up a really good moon game, you might be sacrificing sun. There's always gonna be like a sacrifice depending on the tempo, and like you have to find that right tempo. Like if you could do like with a pottery game, you can just fill up all your suns really quickly, but you might have really bad moon scoring because there's probably whatever colors. But if you take your time to make sure you get your moon scoring and do your set collection in that part of the game nicely, you might be losing out on big sun scoring when the sun scorings happen. So I feel like there's like a little bit of that.
That's a good point with regards to pottery. I can totally see that. Yeah.
I
don't know. So some of this stuff, it feels like you're just going to focus on suns early game and moons towards the end of the game. And, the game allows for that because every round you're going to score 1 category. And then additionally, the puzzle of the tambos, I agree, it's really fun, but I kind of think it's solvable because, I'm not sure, but it feels like you can kind of do the right thing most of the time and figure out what you're going to do. And I'm not sure how engaging that's going to be after a few plays, but the interaction on the tracks, I feel like, is really
that's where the game
is. That's the main, that's the chunky thing. Well, I think it seems like the little grid thing with the tambos would normally be a solvable problem. But
I wasn't solving it. Yeah.
But as someone who definitely did not solve it last time, I can tell you it doesn't. But remember, that's going to be also impacted by what happens on the on the main board, because when an IR dies, if the teal IR at the end of the round is in the back of the pack, it retires. There's some housekeeping that happens, but also your little teal marker on your board also retires. And depending on what retires and what doesn't, it's all going to depend on what spots are open going into the next round on your little board. So there are sort of like, I think, guiding principles that you will almost always try to follow, but you're never going to always be guaranteed to do that board exactly how you want to, I think. And also it's because
I think you're right. And also the two-step, the fact that like only two of those places let you move the IR twice, and you can only activate each spot 4 times over the course of the game, because there's only 4 Tambos in that column or row, means that you're kind of limited in that way too. And so that's kind of,
and you may have a situation, right? Like you may have a situation where your game plan says, okay, the next step marker I move has to be the teal one, and I'm going to move it over to this area. But then because of something that happened on the main board, the more pressing issues, you have to take advantage and do the blue thing. So you're sometimes like, you're really connected to what's happening on the map. And that actually brings me back to the point that I was thinking about earlier. Something that I actually really like about this game is that there's often a moment where you have to make a really hard decision on a tactical dilemma. So if we go back to the IR tracks, and we've been talking about how like these IRs are going down the tracks and there's like actions that are like some left in their wake. The actions, there are 4 actions in the game, and they kind of cycle on the map. So I don't remember the exact order, but like I'll just say action A, B, C, and D. So if you look at the track, it goes A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D,
right.
A, B, C, D. So if someone takes the weaving, there might not be another weaving action on that track until the IR moves forward 3 or 4 spots. But there might be a weaving spot available on a different IR spot. So this is a common scenario. You say, I really need to take the weaving action because weaving is about to score with the teal IR, but there's nothing available on the teal track, but there's something available on the blue track. So I'm going to take weaving on the blue track, but by me taking the weaving on the blue track, I move the blue IR forward, and then that's going to score the corn. And Jordan's doing so well on the corn, so I might be setting myself up for the weaving, but actually I'm just really helping Jordan. But maybe I should go find a corn thing first, because Jordan's inevitably going to do the corn thing, because I'll do the corn over here, but then I'm not getting my weaving, and then the weaving's going to score soon. And you're constantly like trying to figure out like really which is truly the best track for you to be doing at any given moment. And I think that is so fun. That is so fun and juicy, those dilemmas, especially when you can do it well, which is not what my experience was 2 nights ago when I failed tremendously on all those decision points.
This is what was going on in your head. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Trey. Sorry.
No, that was it. I was being snide. I was enjoying Ben's, spitting up of his. I was like, does that sound like fun? Like, but believe it or not, that actually is. But that's fun for you, Ben, right? To be. But if I do this, then I'm gonna do that. But you like, you were keeping it all inside your head, but maybe it just to the outside, it just looked like like slowly vibrating yourself.
I always take the wrong choice. I'm like, I overthink it, and then because you're trying to be as efficient, you're trying to take advantage of what everyone else is doing, and you're trying to really guess like, if I do this, then maybe I can do this on my next turn. And then like it always feels like you're setting other people up to score, and you're trying to just kind of like minimize things. But then you just
got to play your own game, be your own god,
Yeah. And it's just, I think actually the juggling the priorities in the game on that central board is like so compelling, because the mini games, one thing we haven't really talked about that much is the mini games themselves. This game has gotten criticism for the mini games being really boring and not interconnected. Jordan, what do you think about the mini games in this game?
Yeah, I think they're very boring, and I don't like them. I don't know. Okay. They're it's literally like put corn from your player board onto the board, or draft like basic tile collection for pottery. I think it's in some ways the very best thing that can be said about them is that they take almost no thought, and so you can focus on the interaction on the board. And maybe there are hidden intricacies there, and there are trade-offs to be made. Like, for instance, in pottery, you might have the option to get a Viracocha to power up your tech, but it doesn't go with your sets, or like small little choices like that are present. But for the most part, I find them to be a little dull. But maybe that's a good thing because you want to be able to focus on the central mechanic of moving the Ayar and puzzling all of that out. It's hard to say, but I don't know. It's hard because they are such a big part of the game and they're not exciting for me. I don't know.
This ended up producing very varied turns for me, whereas I had plenty of turns where, again, like I was playing kind of a one-dimensional game where I'm like looking and it's like, well, if it's still there, I'm going to be, taking that textile tile. If it's there, it comes to me, I take my textile tile, I'll take 1 and 3, blah, 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 next, and I had a turn just like that. The other times it's like, oh, I have no idea what to do. The thing I want to do doesn't seem to have any pathway on any of the tracks. There's so many different landmines I could create here. And then you're kind of in AP land. And it was interesting to me how on different turns, and frankly, I think like when I was playing simply and quickly, I was not playing better. It was just kind of like I've simplified the game for myself because it's what I can handle right now in terms of bandwidth. But I also think like there's sometimes when you're just sitting at the board going, oh, there's so many considerations here, and you're doing that kind of spin up of different things, and maybe that's a delight. I didn't feel like I was waiting for other people. This is not one of those games where I at least in our last game, I did not feel impatient with anyone ever.
And we have dwindling turns as the game goes on, which is a really cool feature that as our actions get bigger.
Less turns, but bigger turns. Yes.
Right. But I think on the plus side, I do think the mini games don't detract from the central fun, which is the central board is like, that is the joy, that is the complexity, that is the interaction, that is the richness, that is the stuff that's like actually kind of like really special. And the mini games just sort of get out of the way of it. So I really appreciate that. I don't think it's like the mini games are like require barely more thought sometimes than just like collecting a resource. But there is some thought in them. And I definitely like you definitely have considerations. Like you're hoping like, oh, please don't take that thing, or, oh, I should get that thing. Or, there are definitely like, a piece of pottery turns up and you're like, ooh, I wasn't expecting that, but now I've got to really consider whether I'm going to do a pottery action now, or am I going to go down the river? And I know I have to go to the river because it's a race and yada, yada. So I have good things that are motivating me, but I do agree that they are boring games. They're very dull. And I've been sort of grappling on whether or not that matters in this sort of game. Like I kind of don't mind because I think the other stuff is really strong, but then for me,
it kind of points you back towards the most important part of the game. It would be the argument I would make. I don't love Trajan. Trajan's one of my least favorite Feld games, and so I don't generally like mini games. And so here's like I'm just not paying that much attention to it. It's more like the decision of what mini game I'm going to play is the decision. The mini game itself is not like the most complex one is the textiles, and it's not even that especially interesting. That's a little bit reminds me of Fromage, by the way, where like Fromage, you've got 4 different games on each, slice of the cheese wheel. And I think you've got a little bit of a similar dynamic there of, am I trying to actually play each of these 4 mini games and commit to them equally, or am I kind of punting one of them? So when I'm on that particular wedge, I'm mostly doing resource gathering or other things with those particular actions. And like that I do find that to be an interesting space. And again, like maybe the Fromage games of the 4 quadrants are slightly more complex, but they're not especially complex.
They're not very complex. And I think that like, some people,
but they're interactive at least, though. They're all competitions, as opposed to the stuff that stays directly on your board. Well, I guess in ours, these are competitions. The Reed game is especially a competition.
That's a competition. The corn game is sort of a competition. It is a competition, but
it is the rewards.
I think I actually appreciate that these mini games are not interconnected. I think that if you had a situation where if you took your little boat up the river and then you reach a certain spot and that gave you a perk in another mini game, and you were sort of getting sent around the circle with like combinations, it would take a long time. There'd be a lot of AP, and again, it would pull us away from the central fun of the main board. So I'm okay that they're disconnected, and I'm okay that they're simple, but maybe there's like it would have been nice if they were simple, but also still a little bit more interesting, I think,
So I think my big issue with them is I wish that there was feedback from those games into the interesting part of the game, which is the board. So for instance, and I feel like they sort of tried, right? Like for instance, with the maze game, whoever puts out the most corn every round gets the Viracocha. So maybe if I put out way too much corn that no one can compete with me for the Viracocha, maybe I'm disincentivizing people to even play the corn game. And so that's feeding back into the main board area by A, leaving more corn open for me for the future. No one's taking corn actions. And B, depressing how many moves the corn heavy Ayar are getting, because people don't want to focus on those Ayar. They want them to die because they're not invested in the corn scoring game. That's cool as an idea, but has very little impact on the game as it is designed, because once you've invested into a minigame, you have to play that minigame because you have to get to the end of all your minigames or of your two selected minigames, in my opinion, to score well. And so that feedback pressure of the minigame impacting how desirable it is to play that game doesn't really exist in a way that I think the designers wanted it to. Like with the boats too, if you participate in the boats minigame, it actually makes it cheaper for other people to follow behind you in the boats minigame.
Yeah.
Okay. But again, it doesn't actually have an impact on the decisions you're making on the central board. So I think if they dialed up the fact that you're playing a mini game as like an incentive for other people to either play or not play that mini game, that would be more interesting. But as it is, you're playing these two games probably, and you're sort of just focusing on them as much as you possibly can. And that makes the mini games themselves feel divorced from the larger game, which also makes them less interesting. So I agree. I don't really think I want the corn game to impact the textiles game, but I do wish the textiles game felt like it impacted the overall main board state.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. The other thing is the Viracochas, we've been talking about them. There's one thing that I don't love, but I wonder if it was play tested and there was a reason why they did this. But like as you get these Viracochas that are they're gonna improve your actions and other things on your board. Once you get one, you have to commit it right away. And there's so many times where I commit my Viracochas and I'm like, aha, this will be better now. And I never, ever use them. And I'm like, why did I do it there? I wish I could have put it there. And I kind of wish you could kind of like keep them on the side of your board until you decide, okay, now is the moment I'm going to commit these Viracochas to get this power. Because a lot of times you think you're going to use them. And then just because the way the game unfolds, you never use them. And it's sort of like, it's a bummer. It's so hard to get them. And then when you finally get them and you don't use them, it feels bad. So
right.
Like there's
that piece of design also kind of locks you in.
Yeah, and it's
sorry.
I wonder if there was a reason why that they tried it where you can suddenly just play them all at once, but maybe they found that it was a little samey when maybe people always put them in the same places. They like wait. Maybe there was some meta that came out of that, but like for me, it would be really nice if you could just like wait a hot second before you place them, and then like place them the moment that you need them, and then they're there for the rest of the game. That would be a nice little touch for me.
Sure. A parallel point is that once you've upgraded your pottery action, you got to keep taking pottery. You've invested in that. Like you need to just keep doing it. And maybe you can't or you don't for whatever reason, but most of the time you're kind of going to. And so that being an upgrade is another fact.
Unless you're Ben, then you don't.
Unless you're me.
Right. But you probably should, right?
I upgraded my tech. I know that was a huge disaster for me. I upgraded my textiles in the first round of the game on Wednesday, and I did not take a textile action. My first textile action was the very last action I took in the entire game. That is so bad. That's 2 Viracochas wasted. That's like a whole. I mean, like it's I really screwed the pooch on that game, but that was an example of really me failing. But that was also because I was torn. The game, I misjudged my priorities. In my mind, I'm thinking I got to focus on these things that are about to score because they're about to score, and I need to get my sons in. I need to get my son income going. But actually, what I really should have been doing was focusing on textiles. As long as I have this power, so that way when I get those textile moments, I will be doing quite well with them. So it's like really, you have to spend a lot of judgment in this game. You got to really get a lay of the land. So,
right.
How replayable do you guys think this game is? Trey, how replayable do you think it feels?
I think it's probably pretty mid in terms on the replayability scale. Like I can see, like, I've played 2 times now. I definitely have more plays in me. I'm willing to explore it a lot more. I have a hard time seeing more than 10 plays of this game. I'd be surprised if I got to 10 plays. Now, that said, a game that I played 10 times is absolutely a completely successful game. But then there are other games that to me end up often being like games that I consider the greats that have this kind of layers of replayability. Like for me, Agricola is, with the huge card pool that's there, like that and Terraforming Mars end up being, the kind of super replayable games. So I think this falls in the mid range. I think this is a game that people that, especially if you've gotten this far in the podcast, you're the kind of gamer that would definitely enjoy this game, and you should play it. And it will, the joy of playing a new game that's asking all kinds of new questions in terms of how you play it. This asks a lot of really interesting questions. Do I need to play the game more than 10 times to have those questions answered? No. But if this were a movie, I'd recommend you see it, and definitely experience it. But I don't see this as being like somebody's forever game at all.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a forever game or not, I'm not
that's
going to
another
assess that.
level.
That's a big like,
ask.
It's like, is this, Trey, is this going to be a game that is this your number one game? Do you think? Like, imagine we just ask that every single podcast. Well, did this one make it to number one? But
that's kind of what you want to come in and do on this podcast. Sometimes it's like, this game has me really excited to keep playing because I think it's going to continue to kind of open up more possibilities. And like, for me, that's always really exciting because when we first we played Arc Nova at BGG Con years ago, and it was a little bit of a rough teach. Our first experience wasn't great, but at the same time, like, there was enough there where it was like, you know what, if you play this a bunch, I bet you there's something, that there's going to be a lot of replayability and interesting stuff that emerges from this card pool game. And so, not that that's necessarily the formula for all games, but, so yeah, I think it falls short of that, I would think.
I'm going to say something a little wild here, which is, to me, the replayability of this game reminds me of kind of the replayability of Concordia, like just base game Concordia, like excluding other maps, etc. Meaning that, like, you basically have a static map, and there's the things that really get changed. In this game, the things that get changed is the placement of like the goals. So which IR scores which goal at what time is what's going to change. And in Concordia, it's like the placement of the resources around the board and also the card, like the card markets, like has some variability but there are small adjustments that do actually really change the nature of the game. And so I think that for me with this game, it would not be that like, oh, I'm gonna play it 15 times and I'm gonna learn something new about it. But I think it's more like, okay, this is the sort of game that you can rack it up and be like, how's it going to play out this time? Like, who's going to win? Like, how's this 4-way horse race going to go? And how am I going to be able to navigate it? So I think it sort of has almost a classic feel to it. And for me, in that way, in that it's like minimal changes that have, I think, pretty impactful adjustments to how the game will play out. And you can always just start from the top, like the same with Hansa Teutonica. Like, you just move the bonus tokens around and you're going to have a different game, and that's what this one feels for me. So it's not reliant on like a big deck of cards. It's not reliant on a whole bunch of different modules. It's just kind of like, let's change some of the variables and we'll see how this race goes. So I think it's going to sit in that kind of space of replayability, which is ultimately, if I have to distill it, is that it will be very replayable. However, I think almost like the prospect of replaying it will be like, oh, it's just IR again. And then when you actually start playing it, you're like, wait a second, this game is so fun, you know? So, Jordan, where do you stand on replayability and variability?
I'm gonna lean towards Trey. I think I could play this game maybe 10 times and be done. I think one of the reasons it does not feel like Concordia to me is that there aren't really that many different strategies you can take. Like you can't say, okay, I'm gonna go big boats or whatever. You're gonna play 2 mini games for the most part, and it's gonna be 2 of the 4, and you're gonna spend maybe like, I don't know, half of your time in the game playing those games, and they're going to feel very samey every time, which is kind of a bummer. But
can I push back on that for a second?
Yeah, sure.
May I push back? The reason why I'm pushing back though is that I think the game is really not about, like, you wind up playing those 2 mini games, but like you're not playing IR to say I'm going to play mini games. You wind up playing those in pursuit of or in service of the larger game. And it's because, like, you know, in Concordia, you wind up always building houses here and getting from the card market. You sort of have you always do the same things, but it's like, how does it shake out every time? So that's why I feel like there could be a little bit more replayability under the hood here than would appear.
I mean, that was my perspective going into my second play. Was I completely neglected textiles. This time I'm going to try it out. Like, that was at least my prior coming into it. I didn't want to just, because like there's a lot of times if like, hey, if you had a first game and you did pretty well doing this particular thing, you're kind of tempted to do that similar thing again. And I was trying to avoid doing that.
Right.
So, and I had a good time doing that.
Yeah. Well, so, I guess, do you guys have we could touch on theme and presentation. I don't think there's anything special here. If anything, that's actually visually kind of, for an E&O tool game, it's actually kind of muddied graphics. I don't know if it's just like a printing issue. It's sort of hard to parse things.
You didn't think that was, they were going for an art style that was consistent with this mythology?
They might have been, the art style may have been, but I find that it was also kind of like low contrast printing. But like, honestly, by and large, the rule book I thought was good. Iconography I thought was good. Visuals I thought were more or less fine. Presentation's nice. But I guess as we sort of like come to the end here, did you guys have fun? And what are your final thoughts, Jordan?
Well, one nice piece of component design is that when an AR retires, their wife or sister of a matching color walks across the temple.
It's their wife.
And then they can like kiss, like the pieces like fit together, and that's cute. That's like a fun piece.
It was certainly cute when Tim did it in the game yesterday.
Tim was
made a very squeaky kiss every time they reunited.
Right.
But
I really like this game. I think it's really fun. I didn't mean to be like super down on it with my replayability talk or my discussion of the mini games, because like I said, they're there and you have to participate in them, but luckily they're relatively simple and you can more or less, you can most of the time focus on the main board, which is where the game is. I'm really happy to have played it. I do want to play it a few more times. It's not one that I'm running out to add to my collection. Like, I must own it in addition to Ben owning it. I'm happy with playing it with Ben. But if Ben brought it out to the table, I'd be happy to play it. So I really enjoy it. And I'm glad that I got the chance to play it. And I will say it also is unique. Like, the central board it feels very different from other Euros, which I think is great, because a lot of Euros can start to feel a little samey. They don't feel like they really differentiate themselves, and this one does. So if you're what you're looking for is a new Euro experience, I think this definitely offers that.
Yeah. What about you, Trey? Was it fun for you? What do you think? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'm very happy to have played it. Again, I think it has some that central board and that dynamic is something I haven't seen before, and that in itself made it worth a few plays. And I definitely have some more plays in me. That said, if I'm coming over to your table or Matt's table and he's saying, well, here's the new thing that I want to try, or we could always play IR again, I'm probably already ready to move on to the new thing. I feel like I've got 90% of this game in terms of appreciation banked. So it's definitely a recommend. I think my rating on BGG was a 7.5, which is good. It's a game. It's like, yeah, if someone brings it out, will you play it? Yep. That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
And
I like this
especially
game.
everybody should play this once. Again, for our audience, should you make an effort to play this game? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this game a whole lot. I actually think that it's definitely it's easily a top 10 game of the year. I think it's sort of not getting the love that it deserves. Famously, as we mentioned on the podcast, Jordan was the one who pushed for this game at BGGCon for us to play it. And I think we emerged from that game and we were all kind of buzzing a little bit because we all had so much fun. We're like, wow, this is a total surprise. The table talk was really good. We were all like, oh my God, Ayar, who would have known? This game was so good. And so I was the one who was like, I'm going to buy it. I don't think I made an announcement. I just sort of bought it. But then I texted out everyone I've got it. And I think it's fine that I'm the one who has IR. I think it's really fun. I think in fact, I think it's a testament to its fun, its quality, that the mini games can be sort of so unremarkable. And for me, it's not a detraction, because really when I think about the game, I just think about those tracks and speculating on them and negotiating and trying to figure out how to manipulate them and how to take advantage of the action spots in their wake is a really rich and interactive and amazing puzzle, to the point where the mini games just kind of feel like really fun little, not little sort of, diversions on the side, but they're not. I'm never sitting there oh, I'm gonna do the tapestry strategy this game. I'm just more okay, what do I need to do to get based on the scenario here, where's an area I can lean into to get some scoring, because it looks like my racehorse is going to be going all the way for gold. So I think it's a really smart design, but it also would be nice to get some expansion content and let's get some other mini games. And if this is the issue that's gonna hold it back for people from loving it more, then let's find a way to make people love it a little bit. Let's make all the people happy. But I really like it a lot, and I'm very grateful, Jordan, that you pushed for this at BGGCon, because I kind of love this game, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that you bought it. I'm glad we have it in our group and that we got to play it more than just the one play at BGG. Mm-hmm. And I'm still excited to play it again, even though I've played already 3 times, I think. So I'm ready for more IR.
I almost kind of want to have a fast and loose IR where we just have some beers out. We're just drinking beers and just let her rip. Let's see how IR goes.
I think
tonight.
this is pushing the beer and pretzels. This is not a beer and pretzels. I'm not saying you can't drink it. You can bring it. You can absolutely be drinking, but yeah. Don't be drinking on your turn, Ben.
If you want to turn this into a beer and pretzels game, you just have to roll a die, a 12-sided die with 4 different colors on it every turn, and that IR moves 1 step forward. And then,
or maybe just mix it with Formula Day, where it's more like a power 1 is a D6 and a power 2 is a D8, and then we go to
oh, there you go,
D10 and then D12, and you're just gathering stuff that way. I don't know, but I think there could be something fun about just I don't know, having kind of a fast and loose and fun AR moment. But that's whatever. We're not going to push that one too hard. Thank you all for being here, everyone. Again, we have a YouTube channel, so go check that out. That's Game Brain Pod on YouTube, or Game Brain on YouTube, and then on Instagram at Game Brain Pod. I'm at Ben Mandelker on Instagram. I also have Table Scraps. Jordan, you also have Optimal Play. Well, it's not really yours, but you are on that frequently. And then also,
that's true. Check out Optimal Play for lots of cool game content. Recently, I haven't been on there, but they've been playing Regicide Legacy, which is a cool game, which I think if people are interested, they should check it out. And then you also may be launching Play It Again. So that's all the ways that you can find us. Different avenues for content. Look at our content kingdom over here. Thanks everyone for being here. You've been listening to Game Brain. Oh, and don't forget about our Discord. Go join our Discord. Lots of people there. So thanks for being here, everyone, and we will catch you on the next episode of Game Brain. Bye.